I hear the elevators, well, the stuff I sent to you and the stuff you still want to home. Let me hear about it now.
All right, we'll call the Master Plan Steering Committee to order on its February 12th meeting at 6 p.m. exactly. Scott, can you give me a roll call, please?
Yes, in attendance this evening from the RKG group, we have Eric Halverson, Steve Whitman, Crystal Kidd. Also in attendance, Councilor Eric Hoffman, Jennifer Ulrich, Rob Mora, John McCardle, Gary Dion, Tyler Carmichael, myself, absent as of right now, Charlie St. Clair, Pat Wood.
Pat Wood just walked in.
Pat Wood is here.
All right.
We're about to dock your pay, Pat.
Yeah, you docked 10% of your zero pay.
I am okay.
Okay.
Well, relatively speaking.
All right. Next on the agenda is the acceptance of minutes from the previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Questions, comments, concerns?
None.
None?
I move we accept them.
Perfect. We got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. All in favor. All right. Homework packet. Do you want us to pass those down to you, or you just want us, how do you want to work that?
Actually, can we deviate from the agenda for a second?
You got it.
So can we, what I think that I'd like to do is just talk about, close the loop on the existing conditions report, and then whether Eric wants people to hold on to their packets or pass them down, we can do either. And then I think we might make sure we update, we have it on here to update everyone on the outreach and engagement work, which we did with Tyler the other day, if that makes sense.
I'm good with that.
So, as far as existing conditions edits, we haven't made any changes to the document that you've seen yet. We have comments from John, some of which we went over as a group last time, and then he provided them through the staff. We have Pat, we have your comments now as well. And we have a handful of comments from our discussion last time. All of them seem really appropriate, easy to address and incorporate. But I wanted to just take a moment before we start getting you talking and thinking about more exciting things, to see if people had any additional comments or if there were questions they thought were worthy of talking as a group. So just give you another chance. It'll stay a draft, so there's still room for additional comment as we go forward. We keep it a draft till the end. But at some point, we'd like to post it to the project website after we've addressed your comments, just so more people can see it.
Do you have some printout or something?
Yes, you're good?
Can you elaborate on this? This is your document that you want us to use? And can you tell us how?
Did not.
If you want to use that to track any edits, you can. I think for the most part, we were talking about using the matrix with department heads when we send it
Yes.
out.
Yes.
But it's also available to you. So if you, I mean, basically what Pat did was he created his own. He went through and listed page numbers and found things, and John did the same.
John did that, yeah,
Yeah.
right. I didn't,
So it just makes it easier for us to find the spots you're talking about and do the fix that you think is appropriate.
So you're just really asking that we indicate page number, paragraph?
Especially if you have a
Yeah.
very specific change.
Whatever format we use.
Yep. But getting the edits is the most important part. We're open to different styles. If you want it to be user-friendly to you, you're volunteering all your time. So
It's a long document.
it is a long document. Other thoughts or questions?
can I bring this up?
Sure, Pat.
All right, the end of January, the second city council meeting, there was a presentation, I think from the planning office or about Liberty Utilities, the gas company, basically saying that they are issuing a moratorium on adding any new addresses for natural gas service in the city of Laconia and surrounding communities due to a lack of capacity. Obviously, that has a major impact on anything that we want to do in the city of Laconia. It basically shuts us down.
This past week or something.
So, Laconia Common, former state school property, there's no way that that's going to get developed if we don't have a natural gas supply. The condominiums that have been proposed and are being considered, some right down here in downtown, apartment buildings, they can't be developed. Any new residential development that would be using gas for heat, which is the most efficient and economical heating system we have, will not happen. So I think, I mean, from my perspective, this is a major hurdle that is facing the city of Laconia right now. And kind of puts the whole master plan into, you know, a different perspective, because we can't really plan except to say, the only thing that's going to get developed under the current structure is something that has an oil heat or electric heat. Neither one of those are efficient for a commercial project especially. It might be for a house, not as efficient as gas, but it's available. And the electric is obviously way too expensive to be heating with today, at least my understanding of how electricity costs.
Sure.
So,
So you said this was in a city council meeting?
this was at the city council meeting on January 26th.
Was it a agenda item, or what came out of this?
It was
It
just
was.
announced.
Yeah, so,
It's just an announcement.
yeah, what ended up happening is we were actually contacted by neighboring communities about this as well. So it's not just Laconia, it's going as far west as Franklin. But basically the entire Lakes region, that natural gas services, they're maxed out. And so Liberty's put a moratorium on adding new addresses. It's also, we have actually had a developer or a couple developers come in and talk about the fact that they're either doing infill, so the buildings already existed, but now they're adding a couple more units within that, and they can't add those units, even though they ran the lines in.
Yeah, so they might have
So-
gas at 2 of the units, and the other 2 units that they added aren't allowed to connect to them, so they have to add.
That's right. And the Housing Authority is continuously looking at ways to add apartments. In fact, we're trying to get funding right now to add 7 units at Normandin Square. We can't do that. And this, the part that is so frustrating from my perspective is that this is not something brand new. In the early 2000s, Liberty Utilities started a stopgap effort by bringing in LNG into Tilton in containers. And that carried us through, but they have done nothing since they knew about this problem. For basically 20 years, they've actually known about it for more than 40 years. And the consumer advocate, which this is the part that really frosts me, the state takes the position, it's not our responsibility. This is a private company. But the consumer advocate, one of the powers and duties that it has is to petition for, initiate, appear, or intervene in any proceeding concerning rates, charges, tariffs, and consumer services. It hasn't done its job.
Doesn't this problem begin outside of the state of New Hampshire?
No,
I thought the pipeline needed to be extended from like New York, to the state of New York.
that's here. What they've said is, rather than expanding the service up here, they're gonna go fix the old lines down in southern New Hampshire and in Massachusetts. We do not meet their criteria for service expansion.
Not enough people. Okay.
And so it's, you know, it's just really frustrating. And the city council said, well, we'll write a letter to the governor, but the governor is gonna do what?
Well, Pat should be very happy to know that in the House today, they gutted the renewable energy, not a bill, but, not a law, but it's
Regulation?
regulation that we had, kind of a regulation where we put a lot of money into developing more renewable energy. And that money was the money from the utilities put in money to that, to help supplement that. They've, with this bill, are relieved of that. And the savings to consumers will be pennies. But the, one of the prime sponsors said, well, every penny counts. So, yeah. So that, I think that puts a negative effect on hopefully getting more renewable energy projects in here to help make up the potential loss of gas and stuff like that.
What they're saying is it will take them 2 to 3 years to design it and another 2 to 3 years at least to build it.
Without interference,
Maybe more than that, right?
Yeah. Without interference.
Without any, but it's a public utility. The public utility is guaranteed a profit, but it has to meet the public need. And when the public utility says, we're not going to serve the public, it's not doing its job. And so I am really frustrated at this. The other part that puzzles me is Senator Lang and Councilor Kenny came to Tilton in December and talked about this. Did they come to Laconia? When did you find out about this, and how did you find out about this?
So I had originally found out about it when actually the city planner of Franklin sent us all an email saying that they had some major developments that were planning on having access to natural gas, and now they're having to go back to the drawing board. And it's concerning to them on whether or not those are gonna proceed. And then Tilton ended up hearing about this as well, and they have quite a few projects, large projects, especially on Route 3, that need access to natural gas, and the developers didn't realize that they weren't gonna have the capacity needed to support the development. So now they have to go back to the drawing board. So in this email chain, I believe it was the select board from Tilton ended up reaching out to Liberty and Senator Tim Lang and Executive Councilor Kenny to come out and have a conversation with the select board. And then that's where most of that information comes from. Because you can go back and watch it and hear them say pretty much, because when I wrote the staff report, it was pretty much verbatim of what they were talking about, so.
And what was Lang's response?
Lang's stance was that it's a private issue for the company. It's not the state's responsibility,
Perfect.
Perfect, right.
so.
John McCardle and I have had this conversation about energy needs a number of times. But John was on a nuclear submarine in the Navy for years. He knows a little bit about nuclear power.
You're dragging me into this.
Because you, man, have a better understanding of any of this than the rest of us, right? And that's what you get for being my neighbor. Maybe we need to be looking at small-scale nuclear power plants to replace, this gas.
Well, they're talking about that, Pat, but that's a long way in the future. It won't be quick, and the problem of waste storage is still an issue.
But they store it right on site. They have been for 50, 60 years.
Put it right in your neighborhood then.
I'll put it right in my neighborhood, right in the, state school property, be a perfect place for it.
I think
You
they're,
know that neighborhood geothermal,
Right.
right? Like they do in Scandinavia, like the whole town runs off one geothermal plant and
Right.
they pipe it around everybody's house and you have a little water source heat pump that,
Is that considered, would that be considered renewable energy?
yeah, sorry.
No, I think it's great, but yeah.
What were you gonna say?
no, I was like, I think we drove some of that home and we can make notes of that and make sure that we incorporate.
Yeah, I think if we can note that this constraint is unfolding, the path forward is not clear, but I think later on we can have some conversations about energy diversification and like what other communities are doing. Some of what, Charlie talked about and what other members of the board talked about, that there's not gonna be one silver bullet, but that if all your eggs are in the natural gas basket and this happens, it creates this problem. And at least we can educate people about that.
Right.
Yeah. So thanks for bringing it to our attention.
This is very interesting, so thank you for bringing it up, but when he started talking, and this might just be my ignorance, but I went to the existing conditions report to see if there was anything about this, this kind of with this level of detail and, just doing Control F, right, on keywords, utility or utilities come up, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of details. So but maybe it's not maybe that's not appropriate for existing conditions. And I'm not saying that, I know we've had this a while, so I'm not claiming that this should be in there, but that was just, given that I don't have some of this background that many of you do here, I thought, well, it would feel that that's where I would go, but am I,
So usually that's another chapter
Okay.
that we did not have funds to do.
okay.
So we stayed on the utilities that were municipally owned and operated. I don't think it hurts if we have a paragraph on this to add it. And whether we add it to that section or we wanna add it somewhere else. But we could have it follow waste and water at the end.
We could.
So it's an easy thing to add, because I think everyone's getting up to speed on the issue. You don't know how it's gonna unfold, but we should at least note it, because it is gonna impact development.
This is a new issue to all of us.
What's actually really good, and we started out, we're only doing, 4 chapters, Tyler? Economic, transportation, housing, land use, and
Yeah,
land
land
use.
use.
Then we added community facilities.
And so we added natural resources and we added community facilities, and then we're gonna also add in, parks, a chapter for parks, right?
Yes, which
So-
they just got approval for their funding stream as
good.
well, so we have to talk about that.
Oh, we'll talk about
Yeah,
that.
I don't think we even sent you the email yet,
We would be
but,
happy to help you with it.
so,
This initial process got the ball rolling for a couple other chapters, such as
Yeah.
community
So-
facilities, natural resources, and now the
Well,
open
our
spaces and
Utilities may
parks.
be added at this point because of what's happening.
You'll end up with a full plan.
we'll end up with a full plan.
The natural resource chapter will follow the work you're doing with FB Environmental though, right?
Correct,
So that
yes.
work will go into the fall, summer or fall?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they're doing the natural resource inventory, that should be done by the fall.
In the fall,
And then we're kinda looking to roll into the,
Okay,
doing that chapter then,
okay.
so.
Yep, that makes sense.
so,
Okay, so
lots of stuff, lots of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways,
Anything else on existing conditions for now? Does anyone feel like they wanna take another look at it and send additional edits to staff? If so, we just hold off on making any changes. If not, we'll make the changes so that we can post it and we can hold on to other edits that come in for a little while.
did anyone have any other questions of what John proposed? I mean, he raised some interesting questions. The big one, that $40 million on the public works.
I'm not arguing with you.
That-
I think that's also a constraint.
Yeah.
I mean, if the position of the city has been to wait for a grant to try to tackle these problems, it's never gonna get done. It's my opinion. And if the city were to propose $1 million a year based on a 40-year backlog, it'd be 40 years before that batch of backlogged work is completed. So I may not have the whole
It's
picture.
worse than that, yeah.
Don't even say that, because,
So,
Seriously.
it's my understanding, if we came up with $40 million today to fix the roads, we would then need $5 or $6 million a year to maintain the roads at that condition. We're only funding it $1.25, $1.5 million now. So not only do we need the $40 million, but we need to quadruple our road budget on top of that.
then we still need a DPW facility.
So,
plus,
really, we need to go from
absolutely
$1
true.
million a year to
Um,
$7 million a year,
the-
then we can do it in 40 years.
The town I worked for, it took us 10 years, when we knew we had to replace our highway garage.
Right.
Because it was uninhabitable, literally uninhabitable. It took 10 years to get that built. And those types of projects just don't say, we're gonna do it.
You haven't been in our public works department, have you?
I have,
Have you? Hmm.
I have.
Oh, you mean the building? I was thinking about the roads. So we're
No.
$40 million behind on our roads, as well as needing a new DPW building. Right, so,
I mean, that's just
We got
as
some-
much of a constraint as anything else here.
So I don't know if the existing conditions I mean, I think it needs to mention that as a constraint. And we need to start talking about ways to deal with that, because, if we've got that type of a situation that we're talking about, where we have $40 million in immediate need, plus we're $3.5 million a year short on maintaining what we have, let alone what's proposed.
Mhm.
How are we gonna do that? You
Yeah,
know,
we can note the situation in the existing conditions report, and then we can decide how we wanna use the public process or the process with all of you to start to figure out ways forward. And then the result could be some of the actions that the plan advocates for, which could be pretty stark, as it sounds like. But there
It
has
is
to be
what it
some
is.
way of addressing it, exactly, right, yeah, and ignoring
The
it's not
worst
gonna help.
case is, I mean, these are sewer projects. The
Right.
worst case is you got a sewer line next to Pogus Bay that breaks, and you now have sewage flowing into Pogus Bay, which flows into a water supply,
Yeah,
and then, you know, how many iterations do you wanna look at?
yeah, we can do that.
So,
I don't think it's unusual for a city our size to have some looming large expenses, right?
But I think
It's manageable.
the question is, if we know about these, what are we going to do about them? You know, Parks and Rec said that they don't have a capital needs assessment. I'm saying, how can you run a department without a capital needs assessment of some sort? You know, does the water department have a capital needs assessment? Does the sewer department have a capital needs assessment? Do we have that? I know we have a capital improvement plan,
Sure.
but what's it based on? And
Right, rainbows and unicorns, yeah.
They're great unicorns.
I mean, at the risk of bringing up something I'm sure is an interesting subject here, but like, when I talk to a lot of the department heads, I think one of the biggest challenges is the tax cap and sort of the inability to raise, or the unwillingness to sort of raise additional funds. I mean, that's like, in a lot of the communities that I work in that don't have that, I mean, they'll go out to bond and they'll go out for overrides, or they'll do something, and it's usually for capital projects where they take on debt. Sometimes it's an operational override, but a lot of times it's debt. So, you know, but I know that that's a sensitive subject, so.
Well, it is, but it's a constraint that we have.
Yep.
Now, there is a mechanism to override it, especially for capital improvements. But
Not to steal the spotlight, but I will say that we just did a new impact fee study, and that was just adopted, and that increased our impact fees by just about, what, 300%?
Yeah, a little bit.
So there was quite an increase there. With that,
of course, if we can't build anything with no gas.
yes, but on that though, we also have been working with the city manager's office in developing a fourth TIF district. I don't want to go into all the details and do anything with DPW, but I think there's a lot of potential with a fourth TIF district and funding a new DPW facility. We also, with those impact fees, can now collect fees for public works facilities, so.
Good.
We are taking some steps to go in the right direction. I think, you know, there's no, I think somebody said it earlier, silver bullet, there's no immediate solution for it now, but we are planning for these things, and I think that there's some solutions that will present themselves. And that the planning department has been working very hard with the city manager's office to try to find
Right.
some solutions. So,
All right, with that, we'll go on to the main event and see who's done their homework and has thoughts. Do you want people to hold on to them?
Yeah, yeah, for
And
now.
just use-
Yeah,
okay.
we'll take them at the end.
Okay.
I assume everyone didn't memorize what they
my
wrote.
spelling's
so, yeah.
atrocious, and my handwriting's atrocious, just so you know.
That's okay.
No excuse not to hand it in, Rob.
I'll still turning my homework, though. Still turning my homework. At least see work.
Thank you.
I didn't, I will say, memo on the other stuff.
So yeah, I was really just hoping, you know, I didn't want to make this too formal, but just hoping to go through each of the 5 different, you know, sort of form types that we identified, and just have a discussion about each of them with you all around, you know, what opportunities do you see and what challenges do you see, with the hopes of, and I'll take notes here as well, just on my screen, so I can take them back with me, with the hope of, you know, sort of identifying what the next level of work will be in these districts and for the comp plan, and also helping to inform the public engagement aspects that, we know are forthcoming. And I'm hoping that the discussion tonight, starts to illuminate certainly on the opportunities, but also on the challenges. What do we think we need to address through the plan? What additional analysis and research needs to be done to help inform the plan? And certainly, hearing from the public, educating the public as well throughout the process.
I'll just write down whatever.
So that was my plan for tonight, was just to go through each of the districts and just kind of have a open discussion with everybody and get your thoughts on each of the districts. So if that sounds okay, I'm happy to facilitate that.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, great. So the first one is the Village Gateway Districts, and again, these were kind of the areas that we had identified as like being primary gateways or entryways into, certainly into the downtown area, but then as we get into like Lakeport and the Weirs, they kind of become their own village districts in those areas, and there were the ones that were identified in the darker red on the initial maps that were in the packet. From our sort of perspective, these are obviously critical, serve a huge role, a civic role, certainly a role for housing, and then a role for commercial development or commercial activity that's already there. And then in Lakeport and the Weirs, they're kind of like unique pockets, very different than downtown, and kind of play their own roles in the city. So I was just wondering, in terms of opportunities, do you all see opportunities out there to change these areas, enhance them? And that could be from a development standpoint, streetscape, transportation, open space, utilities, we're open to anything. This is a comp plan and it's supposed to be all encompassing. Yeah.
When I looked at this, I interpreted opportunities as positive attributes of the area, is that correct?
Yeah,
Is that
definitely.
appropriate? So when I looked at the Village Gateway Districts, and I'm not anywhere near as well-versed in the city as probably some of the people sitting up here. I've lived here for 5 years, so I'm kind of looking at it with a different set of eyes, I guess. Is that
That can be great.
fair?
Yeah.
So I looked at their access, good access to business and work. If somebody were looking to come here for that. They're walkable to various parts of the city that are attractive. They have a historic value to the community. And the opportunity for rental properties, if it's a commercial building above the ground level, would be an opportunity, typically is what you see. What I saw as challenges were typically it's an older infrastructure that would need to be maintained. Potential for crime, usually in the smaller compact areas you may see that. Residential access to parking, I think we've talked about that at a couple of other meetings, and they may typically have higher rent versus other areas. Traffic could be a problem, and limited for expansion of the properties. That's what I interpreted.
When you say the access to parking, was that on-street parking, off-street parking, all the above?
Yeah, either. If you've got an existing site that maybe was built to have, one family or whatever, and you decide you're gonna break it off into different living units.
Yep.
You may need more parking than was originally conceived for the space.
Got it, thank you.
That was really helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Other thoughts?
I'll mention a couple things. I had a lot of those I feel like I'll have a little low-hanging fruit, so forgive me. And I tried to think about it in terms of challenges and opportunities, but sometimes it turned out to be an opinion or a question, so that may come through. But I felt like that there's sort of some availability of the buildings. I think when I think about downtown, I think that there's still opportunities in some of those buildings for other businesses and growth. And I think that that's a real draw of downtown because it already has that, and I think it will draw people in to want, a business owner. But I think on the flip side of that, we talked about, maybe it's not really in our control, but there's a little bit lack of variety, and that could also be a deterrent for a business owner who might want to do something a little more niche, or that's trying to appeal to tourists or vacation, So just a consideration, in that regard.
What do you, when you say lack of variety, are there things that you think are specifically missing, or people you talk to say, oh, I wish there was this in any of the village
No,
districts?
I mean, if I am truthful about downtown, I think it does have a little bit of everything. But it could feel, that there are some businesses that dominate more than others. And then if you think about it as like a shopping destination, I mean, if I think about from, maybe I'm being a little more personal reflecting here, but, having a gift shop or a place to pop in, for, there are those with coffee, so I know what's down there, but, I think about little variety.
Yep.
Maybe more restaurants or places to grab a bite, in the evening.
I was thinking the same thing, like either when I come here or sometimes if I'm leaving around 8 o'clock, like I usually stop on the highway, like kind of on the highway on my way out to grab something, whereas like I love to sit down and grab something, so yeah, that makes sense.
The trouble, the thing is, if the business is there, if the people are there, or they think they can make the business, whatever the shop is, somebody's gonna come along and say, I wanna do this here. So I don't know what a master plan can do to make those people wanna come in and open up a business. We've certainly, in my lifetime, seen many businesses come and go, trying things, and then it just doesn't work. Even right along Main Street there, we've had, where the barber shop is, and you got a few other buildings there. Just in the last 5 years, we've had 2 or 3 businesses come in, open up, and then they're gone, because the people just didn't, for whatever reason, didn't shop a lot there. I don't think they were driven out by the rent. I think it was just lack of
Yeah,
business.
I think that's one of the opportunities that downtowns have, is for that type of transitional businesses to happen. It gives people an opportunity to get started on something small, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. But the downtown, the smaller business locations, so you're not expending a whole lot of money on rent. I mean, you're spending money on rent, but it's not so outrageous that you can't do the business. So that's perhaps an opportunity. Well, obviously, you've got a
No,
huge space.
I was gonna say, look at Canal Street.
Right.
You've got the raw fish, I call it.
The sushi.
But, yeah, but that's that's literally like a long closet.
Right.
And the guys survived. I think it's a guy, I don't eat this stuff, so I don't go in there, but they've survived. They seem to do a good business, or at least enough to survive there. And yet we have the corner there on Canal Street, Canal and
Trillium?
Beacon here, Beacon
Right.
East.
Oh, yeah.
And, they've had places going there. We had one business, remember, they did all the work, all ready to go, and they never opened. Do you remember that place?
Which one was that?
On the corner there, I don't know.
Where
but they-
Trillium is.
Yeah, they put all this work in there, everything,
The
dishware,
cupcake one?
everything, and they never opened.
The bakery.
Yeah.
It was something like that. So my point is that we have a lot of people with their minds expanding all the time to think about stuff. And yet we've got that building, I can't believe it's still empty, and I don't know what the story is, right in the corner of Main Street and Veterans,
Yeah.
Sure.
there.
The old
That-
Yikes building.
Yeah, that building there, and they were doing work in there, and I thought sure as hell something was going in there. They never did anything. But to me, but no parking, because I looked at that building for an ice cream shop. There's no really no
What do you
parking
mean, no
for it.
parking?
No.
Well, that took
There's
35 minutes.
there's no parking there, there's no parking there for a delivery truck to come on the side. And,
Well, they could park on.
and,
Main Street.
yeah, they could. And, but then you mess up his coffee. And then, it's not accessible for a wheelchair or something like that. So they were gonna have to do a lot of work with that. But nobody's ever gone in there, which that's a great location. You got windows on on a corner.
Right.
And yet that's been empty for 2 years now,
More than that.
More than that.
more than that. I don't know if it's the rent or not, but.
Yeah.
If I could piggyback on that, some of you local have been, maybe you don't read some of the online conversations,
Not
but,
me.
well, I do. One of my favorite pages, I call Laconia's bitching, but it's really Laconia's talking. But there was an ongoing thread and debate about the Colonial Theater and all the money that the city spent on that. And somebody did a survey of 3 or 4 businesses. I don't think they asked you. But,
Nobody gave me some envelopes to pass around to
Yeah.
people. I'm gonna do that.
but anyway, the Colonial Theater is running shows. Could they run more? Probably, but they're running shows. When you get out of a show, there is absolutely no place to go. Maybe you could go to Hector's, and that's it. And I've told a lot of other businesses, why don't you adjust your hours? If there's a show, be open later.
And
It's
his-
still dark. The business owner gets to choose the hours. They all wanna work 9 to 5. You can't make them change.
I tried,
You can't make them
Gary,
change.
I tried for the theater.
Remember long ago, downtown used to have Thursday nights.
Thursday and Friday
Thursday
night.
and Friday, they'd be open late.
Yeah, and I tried that when I was across the street, and I felt like an idiot. I
'Cause
got
you were the
staff
only one.
on there,
Yep.
nobody came in.
Yep.
And so I said, oh, the hell with this, but I did it for several months.
Yeah.
And then I did the same thing with the theater. But to be fair, when people get out of their show, Gary, except for a few that wanna knock back a spirit or two, the rest of them wanna go home, or they're going wherever they go, they got a long drive, whatever. So they're not hanging around, but the theater has brought me business, in my business, because they say, they'll come in and I always ask, oh, I saw your place the other night when I was here in town for a show, and I really wanted to check it out. And these are people who live in Laconia. So it
Well,
does bring
let
in
me
people.
modify that.
Thank you.
One of the things we always talk about is attracting the younger crowd. Well, the younger crowd doesn't mind being out later. I mean, maybe you wanna be home at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock.
If there's
and
money
maybe
to be
I wanna
made, I'll stay up
I know,
24 hours.
I know, but I do think, I do think the opportunity is there, that people that go to the show and get out at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, they're not ready to go home necessarily.
No, they wanna do this,
Yeah.
and God bless them.
Yeah.
I don't serve
I
that.
think the good
Maybe
news
you should.
here, and I think this goes back to a question that I think you said, Charlie, we don't need to solve the problem here today.
Right.
The master plan can help, but I think with what you're doing, you're trying to identify, like, what are the critical building blocks, what are the assets, what are the attributes that we like or that we know need to be dealt with? And then there are probably some things that we would point out in a large footprint workplace that might be limitations to some of the conversation, right? The
Yes,
business
exactly right.
success other
And also
stuff.
this can drive strategy too, because maybe there's a city program that could help small businesses get started, or there's, I don't know, parking barriers or zoning barriers or permitting barriers, I don't know. But this conversation is very helpful to know, like, we want more of X and we're not getting it, so why is that, right? It's on us to then go back and take a look at that.
What are the 3 things people want to move here for? Housing, job opportunity, and things to do. That's the formula.
Yep.
We've got, well, I don't know, when we're talking about, the double-edged sword about increasing our fees on development is we're gonna increase the cost of new residential development. So, on the one hand, we wanna have more residential development, we want more workforce housing. But on the other hand, we're gonna make it more expensive anyway by imposing fees on that. It's a tough situation to have it both ways.
It is a definite balancing act, but we did do a really great survey for it and, or study, I should say, for it, and we're really in line with all the other communities now. So I mean, we are really fair. But any
I
fee
remember you
increase is
said
still
that,
going to.
and I believe you, I believe you, I didn't doubt what you said was correct. It's just a question of every additional dollar we charge the developer gets passed on to the consumer who either buys or rents. And therein lies the problem. We've got opportunities, there's places to rent, to make something. I can think of a handful of places right on or around Main Street that could be open at night, that could be serving food and beverage after hours, That way they could work till 1 AM and they could sleep till noon, for the person that likes that kind of a schedule.
It's funny you say that, because there's an establishment up at the Weirs that, with the city's blessing, was able to serve alcohol past the old standard 1 AM. And the city gave him permission to, I want to say it's 2 AM now, and that's Tower Hill. And it worked very well, and what he found was that the majority of his business where staff from other establishments that shut down, and they all wanted to go to a place and hang out and just chill out. And he said they were the best customers ever because they were in the business,
in
so
the
they tipped really well. And they were just really all cool. But doing that brought an immediate negative reaction from liquor enforcement, not our local police, but from liquor enforcement. And liquor enforcement would go up there and literally threaten, you know, you're screwing this all up, I have to stay out later now for you. And it was just a really, really bad vibe until they took their license away for life, which they're now fighting in, and there was the thought that that was part of what caused that. But the city, my point is the city works with businesses like that and are able to, we're not a closed fist environment here. The city work with it. But I don't know who just said that, I think it was Gary, I would disagree that people come here for things to do. I think people come here for the beauty of our city and the beauty of the area. And New Hampshire does have, you know, I hear a lot of friends in Massachusetts, several who moved into New Hampshire, not here, but into the Dover area, places like that. And they say, you know, we move up because we love the state. We just love the terrain, and it's more of a little bit less regulations and stuff like that, so they like that. I think one thing that Dover has over us tremendously is they're closer to the, they're closer to the coast, but they're also closer to the interstate system than we are, even though we're only 8 miles away. They're right on it. And I know people will laugh at me, but that damn railroad has brought a lot of development to that area and business. People have moved to live there because they can hop on the train and they just go right to Boston to work.
So to kind of tie this into what we're kind of talking about, as I would say, transportation is probably one of the challenges then we want to add for the district. With that, I'll kind of, I know people have mentioned it, so I'll go over mine. So one of mine that I did talk about, and I think somebody used it as a challenge, I think it is also an opportunity, even though it is, I would recognize it as a challenge, would be infrastructure. We do have some aging infrastructure, but the infrastructure in the village district or the downtown area would be more supportive of higher density or mixed uses. So I think that's also an opportunity. I also think that the walkability of the area is an opportunity, along with the district is mostly comprised of the urban commercial, so I would say mixed use is also a strong opportunity. I think there's also some opportunities for us to have transition areas into the next districts within this area, and maybe that's through a form-based code or some design standards we want to look at. Challenges, I think that it's been brought up before. Lot sizes, some of the nonconformity that already exists that you're not going to change. When I say nonconformity, that's uses or lots. Parking was brought up. I think parking downtown and in the area is a huge issue, whether on-site or off-site. And that goes back to that, some of those non-conforming uses, they were built when people didn't have cars. Now you have cars. Now everybody has 2 cars. A lot of the development that would need to happen in the area is a redevelopment. I think that adds to higher costs. And I put it as an opportunity and a challenge as well, is the historic nature of some of the area. I think that, you know, you want to preserve some of the character of the neighborhoods, but you also want to be balanced enough where you're allowing people to come in and redevelop. And there's a happy medium there between historic preservation and development. And I think that we'll probably have that as an opportunity and challenge in every single one of these districts.
I think, if I may, another opportunity we have is the services that are downtown in the central area especially. And somewhat also in Lakeport, the Weirs, but different types of services. We have the library here, the hospital is close by, the medical facility, the courts, the police are all here, so there are services here that you can't get in other places. So that's one of the opportunities, and sometimes the challenge as well, but I think it's an opportunity for that village, if you will. It's one of the concerns about moving some of the city facilities up to Laconia Common is that that's taking away from that village. And
From the city.
correct.
downtown city.
That's
Yeah,
right, and that's,
exactly.
that's a concern that's been expressed many times by a number of people, so I guess that's a challenge, is how do we maintain the services here and not, you know, disrupt
Disperse
that,
them, yeah.
that village, if you will.
Yep. Makes sense.
Say that well.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's,
We know what you mean.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think City Hall is, especially when you're looking at this village district, is part of the heart of a downtown.
Right.
I don't disagree with you.
So, and we know the city hall needs work,
And
I mean,
and you have the main post office here.
for the post office.
You do have a potential railroad station here, is that we do have the scenic railroad that goes back and forth. And you have, again, we have the river, so, you know, Lake
river,
Apeche
the
right up the
walkway here
road, the
is-
Winnisquam.
Right.
I mean, it's a very good central core, right here.
At the boat launch now down on the river. So, and the hotel, the main hotel here. So, I mean, it's, the opportunities are here, and so it's just a question of how do we maintain those services and those things here? So,
You know, I really think that's just gonna be like, almost like a force of nature. It's just gonna happen. It's downtown. However, you know, things like this gas thing and stuff like that, that can be problematic for sure. But we do have people building stuff around and adding on to stuff. You know, at some point I'll sell my building, and I would hope somebody will do some really cool stuff with that building.
Right.
Maybe even add a floor to it or something like that. I mean, the potential is there. And you've got still work going on across the street, right, in the upstairs. What are they doing there?
Oh, yeah, the Masonic of the,
Guess the Garden Theater.
The
now.
Garden
Yeah.
Theater. What are they putting up there? Offices or
yeah,
apartments?
I think a little bit of both.
Yeah, the architects are gonna be on the third floor. The second floor where the theater is gonna be some, I don't know if there's gonna be residential stuff there or not, or if that's gonna be commercial as well. Do they know? Have they decided yet?
There are some residential units
Are
on
there?
that floor that will
Okay.
be on. Yeah.
With that, does anybody else have any opportunities or challenges they want to look at for the village district?
When you say the village district, are we talking about all, like Lakeport Weirs
Yep,
and?
any of them.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
The red areas.
I mean, Lakeport's already begun a lot of transformation in many ways. And
So cute.
And I think that's something that, like, and I mentioned it, and I think other people have kind of talked about the historic preservation, the look and feel of these neighborhoods that you want to preserve, and it's how we go about doing it the right way in a balanced approach. So I think it's very important.
The reason why we get a lot of people visit here, because they like what we have. They leave the Linway in Lynn.
Well, it's interesting too, and obviously in today's paper, the article about Paul Fitzgerald, you know, keeping the city together, not letting Weirs secede. Laconia is it's a unique community in my perspective in so many ways, because it has the discrete downtown area, it has Lakeport, and it has the Weirs, and they're really three different communities. Well, you know, if you talk to the people in the Weirs, they don't
Depends who
really
you
care
talk
a
to.
lot about what's happening down here.
It depends on who you talk to, and I think each has its own unique little things, but I've never thought of it as three separate cities or even three separate areas, except we call it that, and that's fine, but, look at poor Weirs Beach, you know, you get into November, and it's like, people think, oh my God, that's so far away, and again, when I was in Kiwanis, and I tried to get them to do a couple meetings up at Christmas Island, the meeting was, oh, we don't wanna go way up there. Yeah, way up there, so it's like a
That's 5
perception.
miles.
No, it's not even that far. It's 2 miles or something. But that goes, Eric, you know what I'm talking about, because you hear this. And it's just like, oh geez, now there's a little restaurant, I won't say who it is. It's in Laconia, and they thought about moving and expanding up to where the gas station was, Jose's place there, you know, they put that, yeah. Anyway, so they thought about maybe moving in there, and the feedback they've been getting it from customers, I don't wanna go way up there. I don't wanna go way up there.
Find
So,
a whole new set of customers if they go up there.
Yeah, except most of the customers up there leave in the wintertime, Pat.
Well,
So, yeah, well, you can say, well, but it's a fact, they do. And so if you're opening a business up there, you don't have a lot of customers, Pat. The rent and the expenses, especially heating, are there.
You don't
gotta
think the
have
Weirs
something
is
spec-
changing?
I'm sorry?
You don't think it's changed in the last 20 years?
With, more, permanent residents?
Correct.
Not much,
Not much, I don't think.
not much at all.
You got the-
Even a place,
The Hodges apartment complex right there by the theater, the open air theater, the Hodges, the apartment complex there.
what, the chicken coops here?
No, across the street, on the southwesterly side of Route 3.
As you're starting to go up the hill,
Coming up the hill, you got the.
before Hilliard Road.
Oh, those there? Well, if you look at the place across the street.
Do we want to move to the next neighborhood?
Can I just turn this in and adjourn myself?
Yeah.
Please, can we stay on task?
So are we good for that one? Can we move on to the, right? Yep, so.
We're on
let's-
one village, we're on one village district, or we're on one zone, right?
I think that was the most complicated one.
Yeah,
so.
and we dipped into large footprint workplaces,
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah, that's true. Okay, so second one is compact residential fabric. So these are really the kind of neighborhoods that come out and, come out of the village districts that are sort of adjacent, to them. Kind of the more traditional suburban style neighborhoods that we have across the city. I guess one question is, are there opportunities there? Or are there challenges in that sort of more residential fabric, your traditional kind of single-family home fabric? Or is that an area where there's probably a feeling of, it's good, let's focus on other places?
Go ahead.
no, I looked at this as like the Southdown and Long
Long
Bay
Bay.
type.
Yeah,
type.
south on a long.
So I looked at those, it's a planned community with, they get various amenities, so that's an attraction to people, but very expensive. Probably have a less potential for crime out there, just because of its location. I think the challenges are that those types of communities are gonna be expensive, as they exist now. If it's already got a planned boundary, you're limited in your expansion of adding other things to it. On top of the purchase fee, you most likely have a additional homeowners association type to overcome. I don't know if they have full city services. Do they have their own trash removal, or do they have to contract with the city? Same thing with snow plowing.
So they do, for this one, so this image is of South Down Long Bay. They have their own, it's a private gated community, so they have their own private trash and
Are they
private
taxed
plowing.
differently?
No,
So then, so that's an advantage to the city, because they're not using those services but I won't say that again.
Yeah, but I think you bring up a valid point, though, because even though this particular image is of Southdown and Long Bay, if you look at the bigger map, you'll see like Old North Main Street, the Shore Drive, Linwood area are very similar to that, where they're also providing the amenities as well.
Thank you, Tyler. I'm gonna segue right into that since you already brought that up. So I think that the city has kind of painted a very broad brush of, this is residential single family, and a lot of these are incorporated into the residential single family. Yet, they're all different in some, either when they were developed, the 80s, the 70s, the 50s, but they're all relatively, quarter acre lots and whatnot. And I think that there's probably some room for us to have multiple, or maybe break up some of that single-family zoning into, different types to have different styles or characters or feels or neighborhoods. So you're more of a neighborhood feel of this particular neighborhood.
Yeah, I was gonna say, these were like mostly entirely residential neighborhoods, there's no mix of commercial.
Yep,
Like, there's no walkability here, because, I mean, you can walk around, but there's nowhere to walk to,
yep.
right? So, I think maybe one of the opportunities here is, maybe, how do we mix something else into this residential only block?
How do you bring it in?
Yeah, and I think along those lines too, though, it's also very close. All of these are there are walkable to some, for some people, to walk 2 miles downtown is like not something you would maybe walk to work, but it's very doable. It is accessible to a lot of these areas where people are concentrated and are working. And I do think that there's a lot of opportunity with zoning. I mean, that is the city. I know people feel like they live, but if you want the city to expand, the city has to, I mean, this is 2 miles from this, 3 miles. I mean, Turner Way is one of the other ones in the other category. I mean, it's, barely 4 miles outside of the city. I mean, I know it's a relatively small city, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity in these areas that are so accessible. I mean, I don't actually think the South Down is a good model because it's way too remote. It's not integrated into the community. It's not, and you want to prevent that from happening again, really, and you don't want the state school property to become that, so that you can create this cohesion. So it's almost like, how do you start to web out downtown into this area where it's becoming less tight-knit residential neighborhood, single-family, whatever that's called, and then, but then, you're gonna have it coming in from the other direction at the state school as well. I don't know, I think it's one of the biggest opportunities, and then when you look at it still has a pretty high assessed value, though. So that is one of the challenges, I think, with it. I mean, that's gonna be tough for people, but not all of them. And then, again, on the other side of Elm, it's assessed more, I think you have even less assessed value for some of those lots.
On the south side of Elm Street? Well,
Yeah, beyond, like,
yeah, like
107,
Anthony Drive
106 north.
Anthony Drive area.
Mm.
Other newer streets that were put off Elm Street, like Linney Lane
Right.
and the other one, I don't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's Reagan Way and,
Yep, is that, and then other neighborhoods off Elm Street include Nature's Way, the stuff over there, that's kind of newish, all residential, but it's pretty close to other services.
what I really, really liked what Jennifer was saying is webbing out. And I think part of the challenge that we have for these residential areas right now is the lack of sidewalks.
So, I'm gonna add to that. It's
Okay.
not just sidewalks. These neighborhoods, I feel, are the traditional family neighborhood where you have kids outside riding bikes.
Right.
Why do we not have bike trails interconnecting them?
There's not a lot of kids in these neighborhoods.
Well,
I don't
not,
think so.
maybe
Well,
not,
it depends
maybe
on
not
which
in
one you're
Southtown,
talking about.
but I think that there's other areas up, off of Guilford Ave and Highland that are similar compact residential, that you do have those kids out on those dead-end streets. They're riding the bikes, and they're really not going anywhere.
Well,
But that area is is a lot in the Village Gateway, those neighborhoods, right? Like,
Some of them are, and some
You're
of them,
talking more
some of them
about other
aren't, because
zones.
we're also talking about these areas here along Shore Drive, Old North Main, and then your,
Shore Drive, Linwood,
Linwood, Holman,
North Main.
North Main, and there's a lot of foot traffic out there on the roads. There's a lot of bicycles.
bicycles
Are we
and
about to build a
foot.
WOW trail right through there?
And the WOW Trail is kind of proposed to go through some of these areas, so I think, that's kind of, some of that.
Oh, like on Franklin Street, right, in Lake Park? Or that loop?
Yes,
the
Franklin
Opeechee
Street is
Loop?
actually,
The Opeechee Loop?
It's gonna come from Ahern Park down through Shore Drive to reconnect to downtown, right?
Mr.
Well, that
Chair,
was
if I might,
Yep.
I think that
oh,
he
yeah.
has a question or a comment.
Thanks, Nat.
No problem.
I guess I have an outsider's question, and I'm hoping will maybe help with this particular type. But we went out for just a little bit of a drive around tonight before the meeting, and we went from Lakeport up to the Weirs. And I'm looking at all the development along the lake shore there, from Lakeport to the Weirs on the east side.
On the boulevard?
Yeah, and a lot of it is, there's definitely residential in there, but a lot of it is older motels, lakefront resort, some commercial, stuff like that, and we can capture that. But that kind of compact residential fabric feels different there than it does in all the other places you've all been talking about, and I just wanted to see if that resonated with people.
Yeah, I think that's historically, as soon as you get onto the boulevard, that's really been the historic, that's where the tourist destinations are.
Okay.
Even though, and those are all the old hotel motels, cottages, but each time somebody buys those, they get converted into condos.
So it's transitioning in this
Yes.
direction of residential,
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
But there's no sidewalks up there,
right.
And then
which
they're
is
not,
nuts.
they're not a lot of year-round residents there either.
That's what I was gonna
It's-
ask, like,
it's
yeah.
seasonal.
It was pretty dark coming through there
Okay.
tonight,
Yeah.
I mean, the Evergreens condominium,
I think this
I
whole
think
stretch.
that's all year round.
Well, I was gonna say that you're also seeing that transition now
There's
too,
spots
though.
here and there.
Where the developments themselves, even though people might not be living there year-round, they are now converting these residences to year-round, so that way they can come up at any point, even though it's still seasonal and they're only here part-time.
Bay Racket Club,
Yeah.
year round, there's the
And then,
one that the Summit built.
what's the one Langley?
On that,
That's
yeah.
re-
Do we wanna-
rental apartments?
So I think
Yeah.
it sounds like there's a lot of agreement on this idea about, like, if I took the area, the village district of downtown and some of that, as you work your way north, you run right into this compact residential fabric, but then after that is gonna be the state school at some point. So like, yeah, how do you sort of connect those in places where I assume there's already infrastructure to support versus what we're gonna talk about next, which is more of the dispersed residential pattern, which is, sort of happening more on the northern side of the city, where there's not really
That's like a big
infrastructure.
jump.
Yeah, it's a
there's
huge
yeah,
jump.
there's a- Well, a lot of that's dictated by state property too.
Oh, yeah, right.
A lot of those large tracts of field and forest. land.
White Oaks Road is, big development.
I think White Oaks Road is a very good example of one of these neighborhoods in a transition period. Whether, I'm gonna say whether it's good or bad, whether there's a lot of mixed reviews out there, but there's a lot of development happening there, a lot.
A lot.
There is a,
It's transitioning from and to, from dispersed.
I feel like it's transitioning from a dispersed to more of a,
More of a,
what do we call
Commercial
it?
resident?
More of a compact
Compact
residential.
residential.
yeah, compact residential, yeah.
At least starting at the two ends and working
At
to
least,
the middle.
it's kind of starting at both ends of White Oaks Road, and it's kind of
That one
pushing
in the
its way
middle.
in.
But we
I was
don't
gonna
have
say, there are a couple in the middle,
sidewalk at
too.
all,
Yeah.
And that's a real problem, if you ask me.
No, and I'll be, I think the city and DPW really needs to have or maybe within this that we do it, but there needs to be a plan for sidewalks.
Sidewalks and bike trails.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, at least start with sidewalks. I mean, the bike trails are cool, but, but,
Like, I mean, the sidewalk is wide enough.
yeah, you can have bicycles on it
Accommodate
too.
both.
Because the problem
That's what I did.
on Weirs Boulevard is the slope
The right of
and
way.
the
and
right of way
is
width.
so narrow.
Right.
Yeah, but don't we have adequate right of way on White Oaks Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay, so it sounds like in the compact, and then as we go transition from compact to dispersed, particularly in dispersed areas that are transitioning, we should be paying attention to the transportation connections as well.
100%.
All right, okay, good. Are there opportunities that you see in the dispersed residential category?
So, I don't know whether people will agree or disagree. I think that there's an opportunity to preserve some of the historical attributes of those areas. We have a rural corridor, and I think the thought behind that is to preserve the character of the road, so you're enjoying this rural road out
Is that like a
to-
view shed corridor kind of thing, where you're trying to keep the trees and the views?
Yeah.
Okay,
Stone fences.
stone,
okay,
yep,
stuff
stone
like that.
walls and.
yep.
And I think, there was Marge Wilkinson was here last meeting from the Heritage Commission and Historic District Commission, and she brought up a very valid point. Some of those areas need to be preserved, because once you develop them, you're not getting those trees back, you're not, they're forever gone, so.
But I think, in addition to that, just as Jennifer's saying, is we don't want to push things so far away from the main road that they become isolated and inaccessible. So we need to keep in mind that that web of continuity of the village concept needs to be available wherever we go. I know where I grew up, when they build a new development, whatever it is, there's always sidewalks, both sides of the street. In Florida, they build a new development, there's sidewalks. And so I think we need to, we're starting to do more of that, but I think the city, as you said, maybe we need a plan to implement
Because, and I think we do, because I think that, you know, when we look at those, especially this dispersed residential, if you start doing subdivisions out there that are larger, such as Turner Way, where you have 2-acre zoning, and now you're requiring them to put sidewalks out there, and it's gonna be a city-accepted street, there's a cost factor to that. You're never going to have sidewalks all the way out on that road to get out there. And then, 'cause there's no foot traffic out on that road.
Well, there isn't now because there's no way to walk.
But don't we want to preserve some of that as a,
Well, I think we need to be very careful about that.
and even if we did develop it, it's not cost effective to necessarily have the sidewalks there, to tow a sidewalk plow out there, to plow that, and then if you only have, this is another very serious subject is, you know, if you have a road with 40 houses on there, and the road is now 1.5 miles long, how many are those houses paying the property tax that's associated with the infrastructure improvements that you're pushing for? And what's the effect of that on the rest of the city? I think there's a lot of math to go into that too, which is why if some of these dispersed neighborhoods need to stay dispersed, and we concentrate development on the areas that can support the infill redevelopment.
I would just second what you're saying. It's back to an earlier conversation we had a couple months ago about some of maybe what you want to do is to drive some of that development interest to these villages and other neighborhoods to improve and infill and do all that. It's okay if you decide as part of your vision to have this kind of western and northern section continue to be rural, continue to have some of the outdoor spaces, open spaces, historic resources, scenic views, and cluster homes together or have large lots if people want large lots. But know that they're gonna be dispersed and that they may be driving for services and they may be driving down to the Wild Trail to get a bike trail. That not everybody's gonna have the same level of service or
Yeah.
investment.
I think one of the challenges too is setting that expectation with people who might not be from here and
Who
are,
move
and
out
are
there.
moving out there. Yeah, that, you know, maybe they come from just a different community where services are everywhere.
And I think we see that, especially on White Oaks Road, where you had people that bought out here in the rural residential with the hopes and the thoughts that, hey, I have 2 acres between me and my next door neighbor. I don't have to worry about seeing my neighbors. I can do what I want to, and I have this amount of freedom. That now all of a sudden I'm losing that freedom because all these smaller developments are coming in. If we allow all that to continue out in that rural residential, that will all be lost. And some of those people that want to be here for these things will have lost that. So I think there's a delicate balance of what we need to have to preserve some of these areas.
Yeah, that was my take on it, is if something's zoned RR, you know, how do we, it's zoned RR for a reason, right?
Can you elaborate on R? Because I had a question around lot sizes. I'm trying to follow your conversation. Does it have to be 2 acres on a place
So-
like White Oaks or Turner Way? and
So,
that-
yep, so rural
Dispersed.
residential are areas that are not serviced by municipal water or sewer. So you have to have enough space on your lot to either have a well and a septic system, or you're being serviced by some sort of community well. So,
So in the, is dispersed residential edge, are those RR?
yeah, those are all the areas that don't have municipal services.
Typically, yeah.
And people generally buy out there because they're looking to, they want that lifestyle. They want that space.
That's what I was getting at. I mean, if something's zoned RR, we're gonna keep it RR, then I think the challenge is how do we protect that? How do we limit what can happen there? If that's the vision for the future of that area, is for it to stay exactly the same.
The only thing, I mean, when you look, I don't wanna be insensitive to White Oaks Road and what those residents there want, but when you look at that area of the city of Laconia, it is different than, say, up Turner Way. And it you know, it has the main corridor, it's right on either side, and I feel like that is one where time is gonna tell on how much of that can be preserved. And the truth is it's part of the city of Laconia that is growing, and you want the, I feel like you want it to trail through, and you want to try to make sure that what you're doing in the weirs is able to, has a place to go other than just, you know, I think it's how the area grows and becomes more accessible to people that aren't just, second homeowners or tourists, because it is part of the city of Laconia, and I think that that's important as well. If, again, if the city's growing, I think we have plenty of space to grow and expand that you don't, that we're not. That's one of the good things, that's what came out for me. I also wanted just to ask a question, because this is maybe a learning for me, is it's interesting that those are the assessed values that are the lowest. So I get that there are, and they're probably assessed low because they don't have the utilities, if I'm using the words right, but, you know, if they did, or does it make sense to promote development in a lower assessed area because has an economic advantage, or could?
Yeah, it depend, well, I guess for the assessment, do you mean on the per acre basis?
I was just looking at the,
It probably
did an
is,
assessed
yeah.
value of,
Yeah, per acre.
you know,
Yeah, so the reason those are so, even though those are probably some of the higher value homes, I'm sure in the city, like from a dollars sale value perspective, if they're on 2+ acres and, you know, let's say the assessed value is $1 million, just to put a number out there, and it's on 2 acres, you could have something that's assessed at $500,000 in a different district and it's on a half an acre, and like on a per acre basis, that half an acre will be worth a lot more to the city in taxes than the 2 acre development. So that's kind of where that fits in, and the sort of narrative around, like, do we focus development in places where we already have services, so the impact to town departments will hopefully be more minimal, certainly to like a DPW, for example, or water and sewer, versus like extending stuff out further. I think Rob makes an excellent point that do the taxes on $1 million home or $20 million homes on a 1.5 mile road pay now for that road, the water and sewer extensions, the sidewalks, the plowing, the salting, you know, and everything that comes with that, versus focusing that development in places where the infrastructure exists. So that's kind of why we presented it that way on a per acre basis, because if you just looked at someone's property tax bill, you'd be like, oh, wow, they're killing it over there. And, you know, maybe there's a parcel on downtown doesn't have as high number, but, you know, when you factor in density and stuff, it makes a huge difference.
Because, you know what, you talk about that, I would be really curious about what assessed value do you need per foot of road frontage on a property to be cost effective to expand the infrastructure there? Because I'm sure there's a number for that of.
Yeah.
I think you need to know, in how many years do you want it to pay back?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
You
To
definitely need
have a
life
successful
cycle.
maintenance plan of,
Right. It's
if you
not-
need $5 million, you need to
Nothing's
have
gonna
this.
hit 5 years, but maybe something hits 20 years, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
You know, when you start hitting 100 years, maybe it's not a good idea at all.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Well, I know one of the issues that a number of people have discussed is extending the water line basically down Hilliard Road and down Parade Road and looping so that there's water. Now, a lot of that is in the R zone, and so 2 acre zoning, you know, it's going to be perhaps not cost effective to do that, but from a city's development opportunities for the areas on the cusp of those RR areas, it makes a lot of sense to do that. And so I think your question has to be modified somewhat as to what is the long-term impact for the city as a whole by extending water and sewer, for example, rather than just on that particular.
So I think you bring up very important. So if the city wants development on, say, Hilliard Road, because we need to have another way to get to the weirs,
Correct.
then you need to develop the road. And the road is pretty much a walking path right now.
Well,
And if you wanted to develop it, you'd have to expand the right-of-way, put the water sewer down there, bring the road up to grade. And what is the cost of that? And then what do you have to zone that, and then to entice people to develop along it so that you can utilize the water and sewer infrastructure
And
that was just put in?
I think that's something that could be done if planned properly. I mean, the right-of-way, unfortunately, on Hilliard Road is only 33 feet for the most part. So it needs to be widened. to at least 50 feet. But if somebody is given the incentive to develop a piece of property up there, and I'm not sure what that incentive would be right now, but something, then they would be asked to contribute the 17 feet to make the street wider, and they would be paying for some of that extension of that utility, just as anyone else would be. If you're putting in a new development, that's the, not the impact fee, but it's the rational nexus. We wouldn't have to extend it were it not for your development, so they're gonna be paying part of that. So I think that's part of what we need to be thinking about is, you know, rather than waiting for grants to take, you know, to come in order to cover these things, we need to be looking more proactively as what's in the best interest in the long term for the city. Maybe we need to make this investment and plan to get it paid back over a certain period of time, but we need to make that investment because that's how the city's going to maintain itself. So, I mean, that's sort of where I'm on some of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Rob, to your point about rezoning more residential areas, maybe there does need to be something between RR and whatever it is, right? So it's not 2 acres, but it's not quarter acre.
I think we
maybe
need some transitional zones
Right.
in between some of these areas. So you're exactly doing that as a transition.
That's an interesting idea.
This is a great discussion, by the way. I think this is the kind of thing I think we need to hear, right? Like what makes sense and what might not make sense and what questions do we have about it. So thank you for that. Anything else on opportunities or challenges with the dispersed?
That's fine.
That's great, yeah. Okay. Maybe this one will be a little quicker before we get to the last one. So the next one is kind of established waterfront districts, for lack of a better name, but sort of the old campgrounds that are mostly along the waterfronts on both lakes. Are there opportunities or challenges that you see there? I know in other communities that we've worked in where they've had like old summer camps and, you know, places like that, some of the challenges have been they're all on septic and they're all on well on tiny little lots. Septics are failing, you know, they're going into the water. Not saying that that's happening here, but in other places we've worked, you know, it's really tight in there. The roads aren't up to snuff, you know, those kinds of things.
Do we have any places like that left that haven't been already developed in Mass? I look at across from, on Pargus Bay, when you're on the boulevard looking over, remember, it used to be a light here and a light here, and now it looks like Salisbury Beach at night. So,
You talking about Pugs Park Road?
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Parks Park Road, it's all
yeah.
down.
So
and
Pargus Park Road-
Those all used to be those little campers, campground, or cabins and stuff. Do we have any place left like that? at the
I
moment?
think on Pugs Park Road, they've all been demoed and
Yeah,
mansions have
so
been built in their
do we have
place.
any left?
I think there might be a couple down there,
Not much.
not much.
I mean,
Not much.
probably the biggest concentration of that would be at Methodist Circle.
I agree with that
Methodist
100%.
Campground at the Weirs.
And I don't even think it, because that's not much, not all of that is right on the water. It's a very,
No, but it
so
was
just a few of them, but
It was that kind of a community.
Is there enough of it to keep this as a place type?
I think so. I think looking at the map, like that's a very distinct part of the city, and there's not really another part of the city that's like that. So I think it makes sense to me.
Honestly-
And it's all at the Weirs, pretty much, because the waterfront all around Opeechee is different, and all around the Lake Winnisquam front,
The
except
density
maybe
of
way up,
it,
except way up,
the non-conformity of it all.
Right.
yeah.
but what are you
They-
gonna
They
do
never
with it?
have
I
to go
mean,
to
you
zoning
can't-
board.
Maybe way up at Daisy Gardner Road, Eastman Shore Road, and that area would be,
We have
A little bit
sewer all
more.
the way up there now,
Do
too,
they?
right?
Yeah,
Daisy
all the
Gardner?
way out?
I think so.
Daisy
Is there
Gardner?
sewer in Daisy Gardner?
I don't think so.
about that.
No?
I don't think so.
And Layton Avenue all the way up to the Meredith line? Is there sewer all the way up there?
I
I'd say
mean,
that's a challenge, the density and the non-conformity of the.
yeah,
setup of
I
the
guess I don't
area,
know.
Yeah.
right?
And I would say when I look at this map too, what I think of, just being from Florida, is beach homes. Like,
Yeah.
what I would say is the old beach style home, that's like what this district is for the Lakes region.
Right.
There's opportunity for redevelopment. I mean,
Yep.
a lot of these houses are old. You
Yep.
know, some of them are gonna last and some of them aren't.
You think there's room for redevelopment there? You think people will?
Knock down things and rebuild
Yeah.
them?
No,
Yes.
They
no,
already
no,
are.
no, but as far as expanding, I guess if you had a
Up.
gazillion dollars, but
Well, you can buy two houses on Doe Ave,
Turns out no.
tear them down.
Turns
and build
out
one
that's not
house on
always
two
good.
lots.
But even on Shore Drive, I mean, we've had houses torn down and rebuilt on Shore Drive.
But-
And we-
do they
Lot of
buy
it-
more land with it?
I mean, this is prime real estate. If any part of the city's getting
Right,
torn
right,
down and
right.
rebuilt, it's this part, right?
More often
But
than not,
only
it's
on-
these areas out here that they're tearing something down, they're rebuilding, and it's much nicer than what was previously there.
But it doesn't fix the density.
It doesn't
the
fix-
parking
No,
issues.
That's
No.
what I'm
Doesn't fix
talking
the
about.
streets.
Right,
No,
that's what I was talking
But
about.
that's just, is how that area is, and I'm
That's
not
what-
sure,
That's what I was trying to
Right?
say, it is what we've got, we've got.
so I'm not sure there's any change in that.
I
right?
don't.
And
I
that might be
don't think so.
totally fine. Yeah, that might be totally
Well, and
fine.
that's why I think,
Let them
Yeah.
I think that's why the zoning board sees a lot of applications to deviate, because it is what it is there, and people are wanting, you know, to keep up with the Joneses, and
You cannot build anything on any of these lots and have it be completely conforming to
Right.
Yep.
to the
And-
ordinance.
and-
Yeah.
And
Everybody's
that's
in with
why
5
you find
variances
gentlemen
for-
in the city council raising hell about
So
that
I guess
very thing.
the question is, do we want to just leave this the way it is then? I mean,
That's what I would do.
established waterfront districts, they are what they are.
I
What
don't
can we
think
do
you have
with
to
them?
decide what to do with them yet, you just have to know
Yeah.
what they are and
Right.
what defines them.
Yeah.
So I do think that, especially these blue dots, they're really the established waterfront. But I think there's a lot of other things that are going on out there in between.
What do you mean in
What's an
between?
example?
So you have Weirs Beach Village out there, you have the gardens that are going in, then you have 52 units that are going in on Stonewall Corners, and you've got a subdivision going in off of Endicott Street North. You've got 100 campsites going in off Endicott Street North. So there's a lot of development going on up there. It's, I would almost say that, what is it, Roller Coaster Road and, out there, what's that other road out there next to, that bar?
oh, Watson?
Watson Road.
Yeah.
That area is being heavily developed. Is that going to become something different just in the nature of the developments that have been approved there in the last year?
And that's like the crossroads up on Route 3
Yeah.
by the Meredith line. So right now it shows up as dispersed residential, but
Yeah.
it's actually got some commercial activity.
But there's a
It's little
whole bunch of
different.
activity going on up there. So,
The sewer line goes all the way down
and they,
Roller Coaster
and they do
Road.
have water and sewer down
But They
there.
don't have water all the way down there, it's
But
sewer.
these places keep expanding the water
There
though.
you go.
So,
So it's very, I mean, I think, Rob, yeah, you're 100% right. It might be orange today, but it might be pink
I mean,
tomorrow,
that,
you know, 10 years from now.
and in the next year, that's gonna have completely changed with, there'll be 52 units online by fall of next year, just with that one site, and then another 38 online up on the other side of Fun Spot.
And how far / walkable will that be to like amenities like
So,
Weirs?
which is, another question I have is, there's some mixed use, there's some retail space in there and some bars and restaurants, and then you have an arcade there. If all these residential units come in, what is the effect on those businesses there? Is that going to change them from being more seasonal to now? And it really depends on the clients that buy those houses, like,
Right, yeah, are they seasonal or are they year-round, right?
but to Tyler brought it up earlier, I feel like the Weirs, it's not a fast transition, but I feel there's more transition to year-round activity.
All the places you just mentioned around Fun Spot are year-round, with the exception of the go-kart place.
Yep.
But everybody else is open.
Everybody else is year-round,
That's
yeah.
correct.
Right.
But they're basically all the same type of business,
Yeah.
which is drinking establishments.
But there's also sidewalks out there, so there's already a walkability to get to all these places from those.
Which people use.
Yeah,
Right.
so, only because all of that area right now is all zoned commercial resort, so there might be
Right, that's what I think is interesting too, because I'll bring it back to the whole zoning aspect. When you look at the established waterfront district here, the majority of this area is all zoned commercial resort, yet you can see that there's a lot of distinct different uses that are clustered in different spots. Even with this dispersed residential edge up here at the corner of Roller Coaster Road and Endicott Street North. You know, I think that's really got a different feel than it does when I'm going down, was it Lakeside Ave? So, I mean, to me, I think it's important that, you know, we have this area here that is this like waterfront district that is that classic historic area that
Lakeside
has all that
Avenue.
history, yeah. And so, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, it sounds like that intersection is transitioning or is already somewhat of a gateway district.
But it's gonna be a fight to preserve Lakeside Avenue to some degree.
And I think that goes back to, you know, whether we do a historic district, we do form-based code, we do something there to preserve the character and look and feel of what you want to have down in the Weirs.
Yeah.
We have a performance zone there too?
We do.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
So we have a performance overlay on the Weirs TIF, and then in the urban commercial
It
district.
matches the TIF district?
Yep.
Okay, so how far, like, north does it go on Lakeside?
I think it goes all the way
All the way to
to,
Scenic?
no.
No.
I think the boundary is the Cumberland Farms development there.
Okay.
Actually, I think 59, it goes up to Doe Ave. Because 59 Doe Ave came for conceptual, and they're in performance zoning.
That was in
Yep.
performance?
And then it goes all the way down.
I think it goes up to the marina. What is it, Aqua Marina there?
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
north of.
On-
Yeah.
Just north, and then all the way down off Endicott Street,
To the lake?
east, it goes all the way to Surf Coaster.
Surf Coaster, yeah.
And it goes along the lake shore?
Yep.
Okay.
So it sounds like probably, even when we go out for community engagement, I think some of these questions are gonna be really useful. Like, this is an area that's undergoing pretty substantial change. What might be missing, you know?
And that's gonna tie into that White Oaks Road, because that one end brings you to the Weirs Community Center, and that area is seeing a lot of development. Because there was, 14 units just approved at the corner, which was just a grass parking area for Motorcycle Week. And then you have the Surf Coaster, which has been vacant for years, which is now potentially seeing 150 units go in there, so.
Yep, cool. Anything else on this one? Okay, so last one. Large footprint workplaces, I mean, we have the sort of photo of downtown on the map here, I know we talked about that under the other one, so I wonder if we can spend just a few minutes maybe focused on more of like the commercial industrial business parks areas instead. And just talking a little bit about the opportunities that might be there and any potential challenges.
I feel like some of these larger areas, especially as you get closer to the lake, off Fenton, near bordering Fenton Ave.
Water Street Extension?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of old there's factories out there or manufacturers out there that are, I think, fighting to expand their services, but they're abutting residential. So I think there's what are we gonna do about that? They're also right on the water, so things to think about.
So what are you saying?
I'm just stating the facts.
It's an observation.
It's an observation.
But I would love to hear a thought about that observation. You think that's gonna be, because I know the factories you're talking about. And so are we looking for the factories to move on, or are we looking for the
No,
factories?
I think those are jobs that we need. These are businesses that we want to expand to create more jobs,
Okay.
to bring more people downtown, to fill these residences that we want people to build on New Salem Street. So
Okay,
I think we need to find ways to
make it all work.
make it all work together.
Yeah, but how can you expand them? I guess that's the question.
I don't have the answer. If
No,
I did,
all right.
A lot of those buildings,
a lot of those buildings are old.
well, and a lot of the buildings have already been converted to other use.
Yeah,
So you've got residential uses in many of them.
Yep.
So,
You got the ones on Bay Street that are still commercial.
yep,
Um,
yep. but things like on Water Street and Fair, you got, the old Citizen Building, that's a gym, and
You got
Those kind
the
of
rubber,
services
the
there.
rubber company out there. There's some businesses out there that, you know, they're employing some people.
Rob, when you talk about these buildings, are these the ones that are more in the map on the page, or are they the?
Yeah, the map right, they're on, all the way over to the left,
2 or 3 days,
Um,
in fact.
okay. Like about a third
Right on
halfway
the
up. Yep.
I mean, it kind of seems, correct me if I'm wrong, it kind of seems like the more you can do to keep them successful, the businesses that are there now, and focus on the core of the downtown, whatever you do.
Yeah.
But over time, if they want to expand, and they could expand elsewhere in the city, there'll be some redevelopment opportunities that will continue to be desirable.
Agreed.
With the water and the walkability, and
Yeah,
Yep.
so it doesn't have to happen now, but.
right.
But I think it's something we need to think about, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
In the other and more industrially zoned districts that are elsewhere outside of what's on this map, are there opportunities to build new or expand out there where you could have like a relocation program for these companies?
I think it's really tough. If you look at Lexington Drive, there's not a whole lot left that's really buildable, because then you're getting into sensitive areas that you're trying to protect with a lot of wetlands and steep slopes and down next to the water.
That's right.
So, do you want to allow an expansion of some of those?
But on some of those buildings, they're not being used as what they
Mm-hmm.
were originally constructed for. They're storing boats in them. Right, so that's not the ideal.
I also agree with
you know,
that.
That, I won't say it's an issue, I mean, it's the use of the property as opposed to being just empty.
Right.
But, how do you
might not
bring
be
in
the
a
highest
business that's gonna
investors, yeah.
actually employ people as opposed to some guy making sure there's no mice in the boats?
Right.
Well,
Yeah, and for the, I'm sorry, for this area, I had more questions because I was wondering if, and maybe this information already has been shared in another document, but do we have a sense for the demand for commercial real estate? And if the buildings that we have now are the size that are in demand, you know, the UPS is vacant, so if there was, you know, and it has been for a while, so thinking, is it because it's not big enough for a company that would want to move there? And, you know, I know of another business that has also wanted to expand, and there's just not another commercial footprint right now big enough for them, and they can't grow their business. And so I think that's why I had, you know, some questions about that. And then, yeah, interestingly, they're right next to these village gateways and these residential dense areas, which is a great thing. People want to be close to work. It's awesome. But wow, is it expensive? And so, I don't know, it's unfortunate, but, I don't know, it's just.
I think zoning also comes into play there too, because if you look at, on the map here up there off of Lexington, that is all industrial park zone. So there are certain uses that are permitted there and certain uses that aren't allowed. And I think originally, when they created this zone, they were wanting more of that, maybe not heavy manufacturing, but light manufacturing, but you also don't necessarily want the homes around it that are already around it. So maybe it's something where we look at, hey, maybe this isn't really an industrial zone, maybe it's more of an office park style zone where it's lighter, but you still have those corporations that need big footprint, right? And then I think you also, when you drive up there, if you ever go down those side streets off Lexington, they're not very attractive for businesses that, you know, want to come in there moving. Maybe for a manufacturing, it was fine, because what do they care what it looks like? But if you want more of the modern service businesses to come in here that need large footprints, they're going to want a nice entryway to.
So, on that, we've also had people come in, and you have these large businesses that want to have something, and they want to expand, but they don't have the workers to do it.
That too.
And they want the housing that is with the ability for workers to walk there or ride a bike. And there's nothing close by that you can really do that with, and it's kind of zoned residential single family around there. So, you know,
Well,
Blueberry Lane is all
Blueberry
right.
Lane is not far from Lexington.
But
But there's also the property that's right next to the industrial park, it's between the state school and the industrial park, and that's owned by Brock's. And
on that, I mean, you bring that lot up, but there's some very limiting factors with that lot as well of sensitive areas, steep
Ledge.
slopes,
Ledge.
ledge, and there's an Eversource easement,
Yep.
so.
yes, I'm aware of that, I've walked it I'm familiar with the property. But I think we can work around a lot of those things, especially if it's to provide housing for those industries that want to expand. You know, there's adjacent land that could be used for housing, cluster-type housing, whatever.
I mean, or do we need to do that, or do we need to just let the state school property develop and have a trail system that gets you to Lexington?
Well, then you still have to get across that property.
Yeah, but if you have if you had a bike trail, or if you added along 106, you had a bike path along the road, you could get down from the state school property to Lexington.
Good. You can get more sidewalks on Lexington Drive.
I don't disagree with that, though.
Okay.
Anything else in this one?
No.
Well, we have the business park too. Now, that's a slightly different zoning, right?
Down at the south end of the city?
Yeah, the business park area of Guilford, Laconia.
Oh, that's
I think that
mostly in Guilford,
is,
though.
so I think that portion there that is in
There's only
Laconia,
a-
it's small, but it
it's a very
is
slight portion,
industrial
I think.
park. But if you go farther south here, like, towards Gilbert Block.
On 107,
That's-
there's an industrial area.
And that is industrial, not industrial park, so I mean,
There is some industrial park along, on Growth and Hunsel,
there is, yeah,
Right.
but, yeah,
And then we have
There's
the
some
airport industrial
yeah.
off of White Oak.
The only unfortunate thing about the industrial off of, out there next to the airport is everything has to be accessed through Guilford.
Correct.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Great, thank you, and I will collect your homework before I leave, if you have it.
If you pass it to me, I'll hand it in for all of us.
I'll just
we're
pass
gonna
it to Greg.
docu literate every day,
Sure.
so
Or we can do that.
Everything I had to say.
I did not put my name on these. I've got a big mouth, though, so.
Nope,
No, I think it's
gotta
amazing.
get my
when you share.
electronic copy.
Yeah.
This is super
Tyler,
helpful.
I sent you electronic copy.
perfect, thank you.
All right, so,
The last thing would be an update on outreach.
okay.
I'm gonna hand it over to Crystal, it's pretty short, unless Tyler has some additions.
So just a quick update on outreach. I know that we talked about this verbally at last meeting, I think 2 weeks ago with you guys. So I just wanted to give you guys a brief update. So we met with Tyler earlier this week, I think on Tuesday, to discuss some of this outreach event planning. The biggest thing is he's helping us pick out locations and dates for those 3 community forums. And once he coordinates those and those dates and locations are secured, we can then work backwards from there to accomplish everything that you're seeing on this outreach schedule between now and June. So that's the update.
And we just met 2 days ago,
Yeah.
Yes,
so he hasn't had time to secure locations yet.
not yet.
We put out some dates as, you know, that he can work with, so.
Yeah, I think,
It's
Tyler,
very
you got a list of like half a dozen dates
I do.
and some locations.
I do.
So,
Yep.
we'll get that back to you as soon as possible.
There's also that organization out of UNH that's doing a youth-oriented research, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. I'm trying to get that tied down. But they may be able to work with you on some of these as well.
Yeah. And I think that's what we want to emphasize, is we want as many people to come and
Right.
provide us
And
input,
Steve-
data.
Steve Brown hasn't gotten back to you, has he?
No, I haven't, I don't think I've seen an email yet, but.
Okay.
Do you know the timing of that, Pat? That
I
outreach?
don't, I'm trying to find out.
All right.
The person that I was in contact with has left the program,
Okay.
but he's still involved,
Oh,
and I'm trying to get more information.
Get it to them.
I'm trying to get it.
No,
to
that's
them.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. so try to
Resilience
piggyback
Planning and
it.
Development.
While we work on those dates and locations, as soon as we have them, and they're secured, Crystal will start to prepare some outreach materials so we can start announcing that's going on. And we'll have the existing conditions report up. We'll, at the next meeting, you're gonna come to the March meeting to kind of continue this conversation of land use areas? But we can talk about it. But, we want to pick up the thread of the conversation we just had at some point too, and we're going to start working with staff to figure out how much can we present to the public. So a little bit of what we talked about, Tyler, the other afternoon was, you know, how much of this can we expect people to absorb and react to? And some of it's gonna be very future focused, you know, about these areas that will help. And some of it will be kind of broader citywide things.
Yep.
And so we want to start bringing those ideas to you for you to give feedback on, leading up to a series of May public workshops on the online piece. But you're doing great work. It's really helping us. These conversations are really helpful. Your willingness to get each other back on track is really helpful. These are big topics, and like, everybody here's a problem solver, so it's not easy.
Some people just like to stir the pot. I'll talk about myself.
You notice you weren't looking at me when you said
Anyways,
that, too.
on that,
So next meeting is towards the end of March?
No.
We just,
There is a workshop scheduled for
guys
March
have it.
12th.
March
Yep,
12th.
that
So-
you guys won't be attending. It'll be just us.
yes.
And then, I believe, what is it, was it the 26th?
Yes.
Was the next one?
Correct. Yeah,
26th of March.
Yeah.
yeah. And we'll be back for that.
March 12 and 26, right.
Yeah. And by then, we'll have a pretty good idea of the dates and everything and have some materials coming together.
Yes.
So this is start building some momentum, and we'll start talking about the format and content.
I have a question about the community input. What way will the community give input? How will they share their reactions?
There'll be a couple of different ways. There'll be, the in-person events will be the same. So they'll be set up with the same materials, same kind of questions. The online version will mirror those. So if you were to attend the Lakeport event only, you wouldn't be missing anything at the other two if you weren't available. And if you didn't attend any of the three, you'd be able to go online and see the same maps and data and questions. We also want to have some paper versions at key locations like the library and this building for people that want to come and maybe look at a paper version of the existing conditions report and give feedback that way. So that's some of the ways.
Are the questions, what's an example of have the questions been written, or is that?
We still have to work on those.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then is it delivered like in a survey, where like a Survey Monkey, where they respond to
It's SurveyMonkey,
electronically?
but it tends to be more, we tend to use more open-ended questions. So something might be about connectivity. We also, like, beat us over the head if we're using too much jargon. But like, we might talk about ways you get around the city. And like, are people interested, like Rob was talking about, like some other ways of connecting places that maybe you don't have to get in a vehicle, or if you're a child, you can get to another neighborhood or stuff like that. So there'll be, there'll be infrastructure questions, there'll be all the topics that we have here. But only a couple questions, and if we keep them open-ended, people will generally tell us what they're concerned about or what they hope to see happen in the future.
Yeah, I was just curious if there was a targeted number of people that, or what kind of response rate you saw from these types of events in, your past experience.
Typically, it's hundreds of responses. If you get north of like 500, I think is good, right?
Yeah, it'd be
It
pretty good.
doesn't sound like, when you think how big the community is, you want to hear from thousands of people, I know. But it's really hard to get thousands of people.
If you got 500 responses, that's a lot.
Look
It's
at
a
our,
lot.
Pat, look at our elections
Right,
as a classic example.
And what do
right.
you
Your
usually see
municipal
from-
election, we get what percentage, right?
Do you know what you get for a percentage for elections?
Yeah.
Roughly?
11%, something like that.
Okay.
What was it, Eric? It wasn't much. I think it was not much.
Yeah, the city election is always very low.
Very disappointing.
Right.
And so any different ways we can include, as well as we're talking about a couple different ways of getting out to the community college and out to the library, and trying to pull in some populations that maybe just by chance we'll be able to engage them. Even if
Give
they aren't
free
common on
food.
a couple things. And Charlie's gonna give free food.
I said, give free food.
Charlie,
They will line right up.
That is true. And if we had some late night drinking establishments downtown.
Yeah, that's
that would
right.
be a good place for trivia. Right?
That's right.
Trivia.
Do what?
on that, we just want to open this to the public, and I think there's some people here, allow them to voice their comments. So we'll open that to the public at 7:44.
Public comment?
Yeah. You looked excited, Dean.
I'm
He always
excited to
looks
be here.
He always
No,
looks
I
excited.
get it. I'm Dean Anson. I'm the chairman of the Conservation Commission here, and lived in Laconia for over 20 years. So, as you might know, the Conservation Commission is updating our NRI, Natural Resource Inventory, and that natural resource inventory would then be used to prepare the natural resource chapter of the master plan. And I feel like I'm running after a train that has left the station, because you're making changes before we get an opportunity to say, we think these particular areas of the city are critical for habitat preservation. White Oaks Road is a good example. Pickerel Pond Road's another good example. So what we're doing is, we have a consultant at FB Environmental who's doing their part, and we as a Conservation Commission have to go out and do certain aspects of the NRI in person because we know our city. One of the things we're doing is we're trying to engage the public in this whole process of data gathering and like, what are our resources? And we're working on doing that. And I guess this is, what does it say? City on the Lakes, that's what we are, City on the Lakes. I think that whatever changes you make, you need to be cognizant of the impact on water quality. And, in the conversation, I got here late, and I apologize, but I was at, anyway. I didn't hear anything about conservation. I heard about, so I used to live on Layton Avenue North, so I know those properties there, and you're right, there was one house when I lived there that they ripped it down, they built another one right on that footprint, and, but when those people sell their property, there's no requirement that they have to check to see if their septic system is working properly. And all of those properties, as you said, are on individual wells. So I'm concerned that I feel like I'm trying to catch this train and it's not going to happen.
Can I address Steve? So my name's Steve.
Hi, Steve.
With Resilience Planning and Design. So we're one of the consultants working on the 5 chapters that we have been focused on the last couple meetings. Tonight was very much focused on like building form development patterns, so that's why it wasn't so much focused on water quality. I have reached out and been in touch with FB Environmental. They've been great. What I would suggest, because I don't want you to feel like the train's left the station, and nothing at these May events, no decisions are going to be made. We're going to get feedback. But what I've said to your consultant is, this is an opportunity we don't want you to miss, and we're happy to work with them to pull together both some data that would be important, because as Crystal pointed out to me, if we go in with community facilities and transportation and land use and these things, so we're not talking about natural resources, it'll seem like something that's glaringly missing, right? And so I think we want to work with you, knowing that your timeline is a little different than ours, and I still don't think it's a problem, to get some of the stats that you feel comfortable with, and some questions that you would like people to be thinking about. And then we can work that, if this committee agrees, we work that in so that you're getting some of your public feedback through the process we're already going to be doing.
Okay, and
If that helps.
Steve, that's helpful, and I appreciate that. I think the other part of it is, if you tell us the kind of information you have gotten from previous master plans that you have developed, like I just, I talked to a lady who is in Hampton, and she, we talked about how they did their NRI, because they used FB also. Right. So it's like, okay, so what are the questions you asked FB, and what did they ask you? And so we can all learn from this. So if you have specific questions.
We could do that.
that would be really helpful to us.
Yep.
Because I don't want to be shooting in the dark and tell you that, you know, this is like what we think is really important, and you say, that's not even relevant, you know, so it's,
No, we can do that, we can give you a list. We worked on the master plan with Eric, so we can even look at Hampton as an example, where they had a recent NRI and they have a master plan. We can give you some options, and you can talk with FB as well and see.
Good.
They've
Yep.
shared a couple of ideas with me, but we haven't vetted them with you yet, so
right.
there's still time.
So I think that, you know, it's, and you said you're gonna reach out for public comment. And so you're gonna reach out to 17,000 people.
Yep.
And, you know, you're gonna ask for public comment. And I wonder if it would be more effective if, for instance, you were talking a lot about White Oaks Road, and I know something about White Oaks Road. And I think that suppose you were to have a meeting with the residents of White Oaks Road and say, what's your vision for your portion of Laconia? Instead of saying to people who live downtown, or, you know, I live at the Taylor community, asking me what I think should happen at White Oaks Road. You know, I have a love of that place, but anyway, so instead of having a general questionnaire that goes out to the entire public,
And Dean, actually, I think, to your point, when we had our initial discussions about these sessions that we're gonna have in May, we wanted to make sure that we weren't just, oh, everybody come to downtown. We actually picked a couple places in downtown Lakeport and the Weirs, not far from White Oaks Road. I don't want to say yet because it's not confirmed, but we're looking at places to draw those individuals out. And so I think it's important that with the contacts that I know that you have on White Oaks Road, to make sure that they're aware, hey, on this day, come on out and tell us what your vision is for this part of the
I
city.
will assure you.
I have no doubt.
And one of the places I think you could probably request to use their facility is the Prescott Farms barn. You know, it's a large barn, and this time of year, it's not heated, so, you know, it won't be a long meeting. No.
Yeah,
We'll have a really quick
your
meeting.
point's valid. We won't get to street-by-street meetings, but
No,
we
no,
are
no,
gonna
no,
get
I'm-
to
and I'm
three
not saying that. I'm not saying that.
sub-areas, yeah.
But, you know,
Everyone's got
there's,
different perspectives.
I'm aware of much of the development along White Oaks Road, and the Conservation Commission only gets to see certain development options. But, you know, I think that, I've had a conversation with somebody about finishing Hilliard Road, and I thought, that, you know, that wouldn't be my first choice. That wouldn't be my, you know, that's another one of those areas where it's undeveloped, and because it's undeveloped, there's a lot of wildlife that's there, and so it's, I think, and I guess I take exception to one of the comments that, so how much are we gonna tell the public and ask the public? Well, they won't understand a lot of this. I think you're underselling them. I think you are underselling the sophistication of the people that live in Laconia.
The comment wasn't about that, it was about the volume. Like, do we have 100 and what page existing conditions report? And people get tapped out in a few minutes, right? And so we just need to pick wisely from this, so that.
I agree with you.
And let the
I
ones
agree.
that do wanna do a deep dive have access to this as soon as we can.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not questioning the sophistication.
Yeah.
Just don't wanna over-ask.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
I misunderstood, sorry. But, you know, I think, is there anybody on the steering committee that has a conservation background? I mean, Charlie certainly has.
Well, I mean, I represented a lot of developers, and we were always dealing with that issue. And obviously, one of the big ones was a project up in the Weirs where it had the wetlands, and it was protecting that vernal pool. So obviously, learned an awful lot over the many years of representing people on conservation issues, dealing with the Shoreline Protection Act, of, protecting streams and rivers and all of that. I'm not a conservationist. I believe in conservation, but I'm aware of the issues, but I'm not sure that's really the key question. The key question is, what is it we want our community to look like in the future? And that includes conservation, it includes residential, it includes businesses, all of that.
There's got to be a balance, for
So
sure.
it has to be a part of it, that's right.
And I think that, I mean, when you brought your clients to the Conservation Commission, they were well-informed, and I thought that they were sensitive, and that's what we're asking, that's all we're asking. I didn't move here because I like the streets and I like the industrial buildings or City Hall. I moved here because of the mountains and the lakes and the forests. That's why I moved here. And I'm sure other people move for other reasons. But anyway, I just want to make sure. So I think that the timeline for doing the NRI has been accelerated. I think we're going to have it done earlier.
Great.
One of the things we're going to do is, as I said, we're going to reach out to the public, and we're going to ask the public to help us determine what the natural resources are here. And, certainly the thing that would help us when we develop the NRI is what are the important topics for you?
Yes.
I think that the geology and soil section, probably we could put that in the back of the NRI, because it probably hasn't changed much in many years, eons, whatever. But in terms of, what are the wildlife corridors? What are the current wildlife corridors, and how do we know? And the lady I was talking to today from Hampton said that we can ask FB Environmental to weight the value of each of the different corridors and habitat types that are out there. Because, I was going to say I look at things different than you do, but I'm crazy, so it's,
I can tell you, Dean, that we can send you both examples of questions and statistics. We can also send you some of the important things. And for this group, I mean, your large blocks of protected land, your large blocks of unprotected land that are open space that might be priorities for protection, connectivity, wildlife corridors, wildlife action plan, riparian corridors, stream corridors, all that. A lot of the work we do is actually open space and conservation planning. So having this part fit in and balance all the other good work this group's doing is exactly what we'd like to help do.
good. And,
So-
that would be very helpful. We don't want to give you something that would not be
No, we
valuable
want to
to
see
you.
you leverage this outreach opportunity so that,
Right.
I mean, it's all going to the same goal, as Pat said, of like planning for the future of the city. So we'll reach out to you through Tyler with some initial things, and if you have questions, we can answer questions, provide additional materials, and try to find a way to integrate you as much as we can.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And whatever we can do to help you, I mean, that's what
good
we're
for all
trying
of
to
us.
do.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
Okay, thank you. It's 8:00.
Anyone else?
You got a minute.
That will close it for the public at 7:58, 51 seconds. Motion to adjourn? All right, job done.
Eric, before you disappear, can I
Sure.
chat with you for a couple of minutes?
Of course, got nothing but time.
Home or you-